The views and opinions of the following show do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of News Talk 1450 WOL, Radio 1 Incorporated, or their management.
Welcome to Beyond Just Talk. This is a positive, inspirational, and thought-provoking program that discusses life and business topics from a solution-oriented perspective with your host, S.L. Young.
Right, welcome. It's another great day, and we're ready to discuss subjects that will make a difference in your day. This is the place that people connect, ideas are shared, and lives are enriched. My name is Stacey Young. My author's name is S.L. Young, but please call me Sly. Before we get started today, next week, my guest is an author, former journalist, and journalism director at a Virginia college. Also, she has written several books about learning to live a meaningful life and a couple of page-turner paperback novels. For this week, we'll recap last week's show, visit with Isaac Jones about overcoming educational challenges, preview next week's guest, and have a conversation with my in-studio guest, Christine Holt, a dynamic college administrator. On last week's show, we had another exciting show, and it was the first time that we had the opportunity to rock with the enjoyable sounds of Nakia Young's music. My first guest on last week's show was Sam Ashtar, who is taking a technology recording class with me. Sam was on my show because he shared with me his dream of becoming a rapper. You know, he hadn't been in a formal studio before, but because he communicated his dream to me about being on air one day, I gave him an opportunity to be in studio with me to observe radio operations and to have a brief conversation. My experience with Sam highlights the importance of telling as many people as possible about your dreams. Communicating your dreams isn't about bragging, but it is about letting others know about your dreams because you never know who might be able to give you or lead you to your next opportunity. Also, on last week's show was my mentee, Angelo Ramirez, who I happily watched graduate from high school a couple of weeks ago. Angelo shared with us his excitement about turning his life around and having accomplished this one of many goals that he will achieve during his life. I'm very proud of Angelo, who is already working on achieving his next milestone, which is to earn his college degree. Another interesting thing is that Angelo, like Sam, wants to be a rapper too. Now, by life's happenstances, these two young men are going to get together soon to hopefully collaborate on some music. One of the biggest lessons I've learned in my life is that things can happen just by showing up, demonstrating an interest, and not being afraid to take a chance. We wish Angelo and Sam all the best with their future pursuits, and I look forward to their success. Also, after last week's show, I wrote an article to be submitted for my blog on the Huffington Post about the lessons learned from my very difficult educational journey to later become the commencement speaker in the same district that directed me to leave high school in the 10th grade to get a job, which is just amazing. This article is entitled, The Highly Unlikely and Improbable Commencement Speech. If you'd like to read my article, it's available now on my website at slyoung.com/blog.html, and then just look up the title. Also last week, my featured guest was Nakia Young, who is an actress, singer, songwriter, model, writer, motivational speaker, former beauty queen, and certified group fitness instructor. Mrs. Young shared with us the importance of diversifying your career portfolio. She's been on NBC's Chicago Fire and had the lead role in TV One's Finding Our Missing, the Tamika Anderson story. She's also earned a nomination for the Contemporary Female Vocalist of the Year by the Chicago Gospel Music Awards. If you'd like to learn more about Mrs. Young, please visit her website at Nakia Young, and that's NIKEYAYOUNG.com. If you missed our conversation and samples of her delightful music, you can listen to it on my website at slyoung.com/bjt-radio.html. Now, I welcome a guest for a new and occasional segment called Let's Make an Introduction. My first guest today is Isaac Jones. Isaac is an author, inspirational speaker, and is working on his PhD. Isaac's story is similar to mine in that he missed a lot of days in high school, almost didn't graduate high school, but was able to turn his life around too. Without further ado, we'll have Isaac. Isaac, are you on the line?
Yes, sir. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Young.
Good morning, and welcome to Beyond Just Talk. So what led you to be a challenged student?
The main component that led me into making my educational journey very challenging was the inconsistency in my surroundings. And from that standpoint, I went to 12 schools in 13 years. So, as we know as educators, and those who aren't educators, your foundation is established during those earlier years.
Yes.
Yeah, and as a result of that, it led to some struggles. The changing in schools led to different types of instructional procedures, so it just kind of put me behind the 8 ball as far as being on the same page as those around me.
Okay. And did your teachers or administrators try to intervene to help you?
You know what? Some may have tried, but I think that there was a stigma attached because, they always look into your records, to find out how you have moved around. Mm-hmm. And early on, I felt that it was more emphasis was placed on me earlier than so later, because after a certain point, it seemed as though the support started waning off.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a lot of times in life, that's a challenge just universally. It's that folks put themselves in this judgmental position. And it's interesting because folks don't like to be judged, but they often put themselves in a position that they'll judge someone else.
Exactly.
And then we have these stigmas that folks place on us just because we've had some past challenges. Instead of what the challenges have been in the past, where is this individual now and what direction are they heading towards in the future? And that's the important equation. It's not where you've been, it's where you are now, what you're thinking, and what you're trying to do tomorrow.
Exactly.
And so what caused you to change and begin to appreciate the value of an education?
One major component that was a major influence was church. My pastor, I went to church one Sunday, and my pastor hit on a really important key point. He said, take what you have right now, put something together with it, and then go with it. So and when I thought about that, it took me reflecting and addressing all of my holes that I had in my spirit as well as in my educational background. And so then I started taking those steps to plug in those holes and becoming a more productive person in general.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you say that, because that reminds me of a conversation that I had with Rashad Ritchie last week. And one of the things that he said, and I'd never heard this before, is you have to be able to change your mess into a message, right?
Exactly.
And so being able to tell your testimony, that's a powerful thing. And being vulnerable isn't a bad thing, because when we don't release those things that are holding us back, it holds us back even longer. And so when we start to open up, share our stories, and then we find out that folks that are out there have similar journeys or experiences, and a lot of us have struggled. And so we can't forget that. So now let's fast forward a little bit.
Can I kind of add one thing?
Sure.
There's 3 things I want to add in it as well. And there's 3 points. It's unfreezing, movement, and refreeze. That unfreezing is changing the mindset. To wherever you are right now, you have to change your mindset. Mm-hmm. The next point is movement. That's applying those new processes that you need to implement in order to change. Mm-hmm. The last phase is refreezing. That means holding on to those new ways that have gotten you out of the mess that you said that took you out of the mess and transform you into this new being. You want to hold on to that. And those are 3 things that I also hold on to, and I also stress to anybody who's looking to make a change.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting because as you were describing those 3 things, I was also thinking, what I probably need to have also is a force field, because once you've refreezed everything, you want to have that force field to prevent anything else negative from coming back in, right? Because sometimes exactly it can be easy to sort of back up and then go back to some of the bad ways or bad influences that we were around previously. And so now you're an inspirational speaker. So why have you chosen to give back?
Well, once again, everything goes back to putting God first. And one thing that was stressed was making that full circle. And that full circle means that once you've overcome your obstacles and you have been able to apply certain principles that changed your life, well, now it's time for you to go back and relay and release those principles off on other individuals to empower them.
Well, not only release it, but let me just jump in there. Not only release it, but you have this unique perspective that others, not taken away from educators and others who haven't gone through your journey, but you have a unique perspective based on your journey that you can have conversations with these individuals in a way that somebody who hasn't gone through those same type of struggles can't necessarily speak to.
Exactly. It makes it more authentic.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then before I let you go, you recently published your book, The Hand I Was Dealt, Failure Doesn't Have to Be Final. Where can folks obtain a copy of your book?
Well, they can be obtained in two places. The first place is on Amazon.com, and the second place is on IsaacJones.net.
IsaacJones.net.
Yes, IsaacJones.net.
Great. And so thank you very much, Isaac, for being on my show today. Best of luck to you with your future endeavors.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Young.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
So Isaac's journey is another incredible story about transformation. There are numerous students who don't do well in high school, but are able to turn things around afterwards. This is the reason that we, as society, must stop creating artificial barriers to block someone's path to achieve their dream. Instead, let's create a chain of humanity that understands that we're only as strong as the weakest link, but also understand that with the support of our entire team, we can collectively be great. Just a little food for thought. Before I detail the topics for today after the break and introduce my featured guests, if you'd like to connect with me after the show, you can reach me on my website at slyoung.com, on Facebook at facebook.com/beyondjusttalk, and locate me on Twitter, Google+, Instagram, and SoundCloud using the handle SLYOUNGVA. And folks, we'll pick this up right after the break.
WOL AM, where information is power.
Good morning. This WOL traffic update is brought to you by Centrum Gummies. On 295 southbound, it was an accident at Eastern Avenue. Well, a little slow as you approach the district line. Then after that was still pretty heavy from Benning Road off and on down to Pennsylvania Avenue. Downtown Silver Spring accident just cleared inbound on Colesville Road at 2nd Avenue and Wayne Avenue. Introducing Centrum Multi-Gummies Complete and Tasty Way to support the most important parts of you. Centrum Multi-Gummies. See gummies in a whole new light. Now your WOL weather forecast brought to you by Heritage for the Blind. For today, heat advisory in effect for this afternoon with temperatures as high as 98, heat index over 100 degrees, afternoon thunderstorms. Becoming partly cloudy overnight down to 70. Tomorrow sunny and a little bit cooler, high near 88. Be a star and donate your car to Heritage for the Blind. Call 1-800-DONATE-CARS or 1-800-446-1234. It's already 90 degrees in Washington, D.C. Steve Hirschhorn for News Talk 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Welcome back to Beyond Just Talk with your host, S.L. Young.
All right, folks, welcome back. You're listening to Beyond Just Talk with S.L. Young. So on today's show, we're going to discuss the journey my guest took into academia, and it wasn't a direct path. We're going to discuss the many roles she's had at the Northern Virginia Community College, fondly referred to as NOVA, along with the benefits of these experiences. We're also going to discuss her challenges, dreams, and inspirations for her future work in education. Before I introduce today's guest, I want listeners to know that if you'd like to join our conversation, please dial 1-800-450-7876. My guest today, Dean Christine Holt, has over 20 years of experience in compulsory and higher education. Prior to her work at NOVA, she was a chief administrator at a satellite center at the Catawba, she might have to pronounce that for me later, Valley Community College in North Carolina. Earlier in her career, she was the first career development coordinator for a newly established school to create programs for approximately 23,000 kindergarten through high school students in 8 diverse school districts, urban, suburban, and rural, at the Cuyahoga Valley Career Center in Northeast Ohio. Dean Holt oversees strategic planning, enrollment management, space utilization, specialized degree programs, campus outreach, dual enrollments, evening administration, adjunct faculty office, and the Center for Academic Assistance. And I'm already tired before I even introduce her. Earlier this year, Dean Holt was named an American Council on Education ACE Fellow for the 2015-2016 academic year. Now, without further ado, I welcome my guest who is a wonderful person, a nurturing spirit, and the Dean of Academic Administration at the Northern Virginia Community College Annandale campus with over 20,000 students. Dean Christine Holt, welcome to Beyond Just Talk.
Good morning, Sly.
So thanks for coming in. I'm really excited to have a conversation because the work that you're doing at Nova, I mean, it's just incredible, the work that's happening over there. And so before we get into that, I always like to know a little bit about my guests, have you introduce yourself to the audience. So who is Christine Holt?
Well, thank you first of all, let me thank you for the wonderful opportunity to share my story and to talk about something that I'm so passionate about, and that's the community college and the voice that it gives to students who need to be empowered and educated, just like your first guest. Let me also say that I commend you and congratulate you for the wonderful work that you're doing and work that you're actually looking and living your life on purpose and living out your dreams. It's something that all of us, old and young, can learn from and adapt in our everyday lives. Now, who is Christine Holt? You gave me such a wonderful build-up. I'm looking around to see who you're talking about. Let me just say that I am a Midwesterner. I am from Seatown, not Chicago, the other Seatown. That's Cleveland, Ohio.
All right.
I come with Midwestern values. I found often that I have become a trailblazer. I've just been forced in that position to be a trailblazer in my life. Actually, that started when I entered high school. I had an opportunity to really have a life-altering experience that solidified my trajectory in terms of my experience and my life's calling. So I had an opportunity to audition for what was known as the Fame of Cleveland, the Fame High School, if you're familiar with that. I know I'm dating myself now, but I had an opportunity to audition for the Cleveland School of the Arts. And I thought, that's great. I was very dramatic. I thought I had talent, and lo and behold, I did not get in. So talk about overcoming challenges. So I didn't get in, but there was another opportunity. It was a brand new thing in Cleveland, and it was called the Magnet School at that time. And my mother signed me up, and lo and behold, unbeknownst to me, my 8th grade teacher was also part of this new experience. She knew my work, and she actually recommended me for the experience. And that began my journey with law and public service, and that was actually the name of the high school, Law and Public Service. And talk about being a trailblazer. We were the first in everything. We were the first graduating class. We were the first admitted class as 9th graders. And because of that experience, I was able to get in on the ground level. I was the first mayor, the first student government president, the first valedictorian. We really had a part and a role in shaping the school. And I found that I really liked that experience of being first. So from there, I went on and I moved completely to a different environment. Talk about being willing to accept new challenges and get out of your comfort zone so that you can grow. So I had been in the midst of a mostly African-American high school, and I went from that to a very small Lutheran college. And because of that experience, again, I was often the first in terms of being right up front and center in terms of advocating for the rights of African Americans and all students. So because of that experience, I got involved in student government again. I became a resident assistant. So I was active and engaged in the college experience. From there, I moved on and actually lost my mind, became the dreaded bank collector out of college. I was a business administration major, and I had told my parents that, I want to go back to school, and I want to do all these other things, but my dad said, wait a minute, I put you through 4 years. Now it's up to you. If you're going to go back, you're going to have to go back on your own dime. So I decided to become the dreaded bank collector. And again, looking at all of those experiences, and you're thinking, why on earth would you want to be a dreaded bank collector?
Right.
Well, I was actually good at it. I wasn't your typical bank collector. And here's the thing to learn is take those jobs that others may not want, but make them your own and be successful. Create your own path. And that's exactly what I did as the dreaded bank collector. And interestingly enough, my claim to fame as the bank collector was I got an opportunity to call one of the Gabor sisters. And again, I'm not sure which one, Ava or the other one. But because of that, I was able to secure $10,000 to pay a debt. So again, I'm telling you this experience because even though that was my first position out of college, there were skills that I gleaned because of that experience. I was very persuasive on the phone. I was very empathetic. I was very passionate, but very firm and solid in you must pay your debt. And from that, I gleaned the experience of acquiring skills that I could then use to get the next job. The next job for me wasn't to go on and collecting, but I decided that I really did want to go back to school, as I told my dad. So I did that. I was able to save up money. I went back to school, and I entered the field of education. Because while I was a dreaded bank collector, the unit right next to me, and again, looking around, being aware of what's going on in your surroundings, asking questions, being very purposeful in terms of charting your career path. So in seeing training and development, the unit next to our collections unit, I thought, well, gee, that's something that I can do, because that was onboarding new employees, getting them started in the right direction and helping to chart the future of the company. So I went back to school and thought I wanted to get into training and development. And my very last semester, I took a capstone course, and I hear this often not just from me, but from our students, took a capstone course, and that changed my life. I got into education. I was bitten by the community college bug because that was the capstone course. I had an opportunity to have an internship at a community college. And because of that experience, I got to see I wasn't very familiar with the community college going in, but as a result of that, I got to see, well, wow, this is a transformative experience for a lot of students, because often it's not only the only opportunity for them to do well, but it may be the last opportunity for them to do well and become.
Yeah, and before we get into that, let me back up, because, I mean, you've covered so much ground,
Yes.
and there's a lot of valuable information in there. So let's take a step back a little bit. So one of the things that you said was that your teacher noticed your capabilities.
Yes.
And that is something that's very important, that we make sure that we have someone who, if they identify that we have certain skills, to let us know, because especially as developmental children, developmental adults, you don't necessarily know what your skills are. And it's interesting to me throughout my career, now that I look back, a lot of the things that someone told me that I was good at are the things that I'm doing now, but it took me the long road to get there. So I wish I would have realized that earlier in my career. The other thing that was interesting in your story is you said, take advantage of opportunities to create your own path. This might not be the ideal situation for you, but make it your own. And so that allowed you, by taking that risk and taking that chance, that allowed you to develop your own skill set. So those are really important lessons. So I want to still back up just a little bit. So what did you dream that you would be as an adult?
Interesting. So as a kid, I'd say somewhere around 5th grade, I would run down every morning to get the newspaper before my dad so that I could get the sports section.
All right.
So talk about a non-traditional career. I wanted to be the first female NBA referee.
Wow.
I have a love for sports. And it didn't come from my dad, it came from my mom. She was a basketball player in her youth and high school. So I wanted to be the first female NBA referee. So again, always wanted to be a trailblazer.
Interesting. So earlier in your life, you earned a law degree, and also you practiced in the areas of family and juvenile law. So why did you leave the legal profession?
Well, actually, I've come full circle, because I started out, other than being the bank collector, then I went into adult education through the community college system. And then from there, I moved back to Ohio to take care of 2 elderly parents. And while I was there, I also started another new venture with School to Career. So I was working part-time, helping young adults decide their career paths. But I also was trying to help myself decide what the next path should be. And again, from the interest that I had that started in high school, it may look like I detoured and frolicked along the way, but always had that passion for law and public service and legislative advocacy. So I thought, well, this would be an opportune time, even though I'm working part-time, taking care of 2 elderly parents, to go to law school. What did I know? So I did that with the hope of being able to help people and to empower them. And I did practice in the area of family law and domestic relations, so I dealt with divorces and custody issues, distributing property, and that can be very taxing, as you can imagine. So I thought, and there was a lot of post-decree work, so I thought, well, maybe that's not the right avenue for me, because I really want to be in helping people so that they could see the good and empower themselves to move forward. So I did some things with mediation, but I still always had that tugging at my apron strings, that I wanted to be back in education. So again, I took that opportunity, when I saw an opportunity in North Carolina, I applied for the position and was able to get back into education. But interestingly enough, people say, well, you spent all that time and energy becoming an attorney, but I still use those skill sets that I acquired as an attorney, be it from looking at contracts or dealing with personnel issues. I still use that skill set every day.
Yeah, and it's sort of interesting because some of the things that you're talking about is what I've been told many, many times, is that success is not a straight line. And a lot of times we think that it's a straight line, but then you have life circumstances, we have different dreams and goals, we have relationships, and we sort of like navigate off of that course. And then all of a sudden we realize that there's a lot of fun off the straight line path, because that is where you learn all these like little things that you would never have experienced had you gone the traditional straight and narrow course. So there's a lot of value in that. So you also served as a guardian ad litem, or otherwise known as a court-appointed special advocate, CASA, for children and the elderly. So what's the function of this role?
The function of the role is to really go in and assess what's in the best interest of those parties, be it children or adults. And oftentimes there are attorneys that are also representing them as well. So in the case of children, the attorney would have to do whatever the child says that he or she would like to happen, and whatever the case may be. But the guardian ad litem takes a step back, works with all the parties, works with the parents, works with the students, works with social workers and others engaged in a holistic approach of coming up with what's in the best interest of the child and making that recommendation to the court.
And so why was doing this type of work important to you?
Because it's the creed in which I live by. And it's a quote that's attributed to Marian Wright Edelman, and that simply is, service is the rent that we pay for living. And I heard your guest earlier talk about this. I think we all, once we acquire a certain level of success, we owe it to others to help them to, in whatever state they may be, to get them out of that rut, that obstacle, so that they can go on and be the best persons that they can be. So I saw that as an opportunity to work with those students, to inspire those students, and primarily children, more so than adults, to get them to a point where they could really thrive and see the opportunities and not just the failures.
Mm-hmm. And do you still do this type of work?
I don't get a chance to do it nearly as much as I'd like to, but I am definitely considering going back into the field. And I also would consider becoming a foster parent, again, under the same premise of being able to help others who may be, for whatever reason, parents just aren't at a point where they can actually help their children. So if I can help while parents are working on themselves to get themselves together, if I can help keep the children in line and working towards a goal and working towards completing their educational dreams, then I would love to be able to do that. So it's always a passion, and it's something that I would always consider as an opportunity moving forward.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for folks to go into their local social services offices or also to the court system to say, you know what, I want to volunteer, because there's always a lot of value in adding some contributions to that. Let's start to discuss your education. So you're a very educated person. You've earned a lot of degrees. You have a bachelor's degree in business administration, a master's degree in adult education, and a Juris Doctorate. But we're going to have to hold that thought for right now, and we'll pick up right after the break.
Great.
News Talk 1450 WOL AM, where information is power.
This report brought to you by Preparation H. Don't stand for hemorrhoids. Get active relief with the power of two. First, fast-acting Preparation H medicated wipes. Then longer-lasting maximum strength cream. Use as directed. Preparation H. Governor Hogan has announced he has cancer. Dr. Ken Miller is an oncologist at Baltimore Sinai Hospital.
The governor has a type that is a more aggressive type of non-Hodgkin's B-cell lymphoma, more aggressive, also hopefully more curable.
Hogan said yesterday the form of cancer he has is well along, but also that it responds well to chemotherapy. Baltimore Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake addressed the U.S. Conference of Mayors yesterday for the first time as the group's president. In San Francisco, she spoke of the rioting after the police custody death of Freddie Gray and the problems facing all cities.
It's as much an issue of jobs as it is an issue of policing. It's as much an issue of community development as it is policing. It's as much an issue of education.
A former Prince George's County police officer will avoid prison after entering a plea to charges he punched a handcuffed teenager in a holding cell. Video shows Jerry Thomas attacking the teen in 2012. He was given a 5-year suspended sentence yesterday, along with probation and community service, after being convicted of misconduct in office. Thomas was suspended and later resigned. Jesse Jackson Jr. was released yesterday from a halfway house in Baltimore, where he spent 3 months. Before that, Jackson served 17 months in federal prison for his guilty plea to misusing campaign funds. The former Illinois congressman will now spend the final 3 months of his sentence under home detention. A long-term escalator renovation is underway in D.C. at the Van Ness Metro Station. The work likely will not be done until 2018. This report brought to you by Great Grapes Wine and Food Festival of Leesburg. Uncork the fun at Great Grapes Wine and Food Festival, June 27th at the Village at Leesburg, just off Route 7. More info at uncorkthefun.com. I'm John Lewis. When you're looking for news from Black America, go to news1.com.
Welcome back to Beyond Just Talk with your host, S.L. Young.
All right, folks, welcome back to Beyond Just Talk with S.L. Young. If you'd like to join the conversation, you can call in at 1-800-450-7876. I'm in studio today with Dean Christine Holt of Northern Virginia Community College on the Annandale campus, and we've been talking about her very extensive, exciting, and maybe in some cases non-traditional path towards success. And right before the break, we were talking about Dean Holt's educational level. She's earned a bachelor's degree in business administration, a master's degree in adult education, and also a Juris Doctorate. So did you plan to have this level of education?
Not initially. But I think somewhere around high school I did, again, because I had the wonderful opportunity of attending a very special magnet school that was devoted to law and public service. And I saw the benefit and the value in working on legislative efforts, that be it from working on a campaign as a high school student to getting to shadow senators and others and council persons. In fact, my very first job shadowing experience was with the mayor, because I was the first mayor of our school. Mm-hmm. So I saw these opportunities and knew that I wanted to avail myself of those opportunities. So I then forced myself to figure out, well, what is it and how do you get in those positions? Right. So I think fairly early on I knew that I aspired to do some work of value and of purpose.
And so as you sort of figured out your educational path and how it might help you to obtain your career goals and objectives, why was it important at that point for you to obtain that level of education?
Again, I think because of what I had read and seen in terms of the folks that I saw and was able to shadow and interact with, that was the level of experience and education that they had. So if I knew if I wanted to get to that level, then I must do those things that they did. Now, notwithstanding, I still needed to be my authentic self and follow my own calling and my values. But I knew beyond that, I also needed to aspire to get to those levels to be able to do the kind of work and for the people that I wanted to do.
And that's the other thing that you just mentioned that's very important. It's the importance of having a role model. And it sounds like you might have had more than one role models that helped you and sort of direct you. So one of the things that we talked about on last week's show is the importance of having different types of mentors. And so what was it that your role models did for you?
It wasn't so much of what they did. It was just observing and being in their presence and watching how they interacted and how they transacted business.
So allowing you to be in that environment.
Allowing me to be in that environment. But I had a wonderful assistant principal who was not only just an assistant principal, but she had also gone to law school as well and had really inspired me to do great work and to think beyond just myself and how can I add value to others and the community. In addition to that, I spoke of my 8th grade English teacher. I had her for 4 years of my life in school. Although we thought she was really mean, she was really harsh, but she prepared us for the next level. She prepared us to be successful in college. I had a wonderful gym teacher who was very positive and was very supportive and wanted me to get involved and get engaged and be involved in community service. So he provided those opportunities. So along the way, I was very fortunate to have a number of mentors, from role models, from teachers to pastors to my parents. So I'm very grateful for that, and I hope that I'm leaving a legacy so that I can be a mentor for others coming behind me.
Yeah, one of the things I thought was interesting that you mentioned was about your English teacher,
yes.
And you were talking about how you thought that she was really mean and harsh, but yet you say now that you realize the importance of what she was offering. And so sometimes we have folks in our life that may not be able to provide the best constructive criticism, but that extra attention that they're giving to us at a certain point in time, it's because they care. And, just realizing that and how do we figure out to, how do we teach our children, young adults, to say this person that's on you all the time isn't necessarily doing it because they don't like you. They're probably doing it because they do like you. They see something in you. They're trying to push you to be better because you don't see it in yourself.
Right. And as a 10th grade student, you don't see that. You just want to have fun with your friends. But she was very strict. She was always, you have to get your work done. And this is the importance of getting your work done. You need to look at colleges. And she gave me a whole litany of colleges to look at. And I'm thinking, I just want to hang out. I just want to have fun. I want to be a teenager.
Right.
But I'm very thankful for the guidance and the fact that she really did care.
And so now let's shift gears a little bit. So tell me about your role as the chief administrator for the Satellite Center at Catawba Valley Community College. And so tell me a little bit about that role.
It was a great transition because that was the first position that I had once I transitioned back into education. It really is. I liken it to being for lack of a better term, the president for a campus or a center, because I had my hands involved in everything from the infrastructure to the parking lot. There was nothing. I remember there was a graduate class that was on site. We leased out our space to senior institutions, and we had a leadership class. And we had the instructor come, and we had a handful of students, 10 to 12 students taking the graduate class. And when they pulled up, I was outside as the chief administrator, and I'm sweeping the steps down. And she took that as the teachable moment for the students to say, even though you may be in a certain level, you're still responsible for making sure that things are clean, that it's an inviting environment. And it doesn't matter what your title is, we're all in this together and showing that level of teamwork and support for other team members. So while there, as I said, it really was a campus president type role. I was responsible for student affairs, for admissions, for looking at our infrastructure. We had a really outdated telephone system, so it was preventing students from being able to register, and that's our bread and butter, so we needed to fix that. We had issues with lighting, so I had an opportunity to work with county officials to change some lighting and some other things that we needed to make it a secure place for our faculty, staff, and students. So it was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to get me back into the role of being an educator in higher ed.
Yeah, and one of the things that I picked up in your story there, and I think it's very interesting, and I want to go back to it, is you were talking about you rolled up your sleeves and you were willing to go out there and sweep. And that's a powerful lesson for all of us, because it doesn't matter what level of success that you obtain, you can always humble yourself to do things that you think that are beneath you, because it's not necessarily that it's beneath you, it's something that adds to the contribution for the whole circle of life. And it goes back to what I was saying at the top of the show, that we all have to reach out and help each other.
Absolutely. And that was a lesson learned from my grandmother, who only had a third grade education, but was always insistent that you need to be humble. Don't forget where you come from. And if I thought I was going to, she would put me back in my place very quickly. But also, I think it's an opportunity when you do things like that and you're in administration to be a model, to be a role model for others on your staff, to say, hey, it doesn't matter what the job is. We all need to pitch in. We all need to be able to help others out when they're busy, and show that level of support for your teammates, as well as your commitment for excellence for whomever walks through the doors.
Mm-hmm. And, that also brings up another point that I was thinking about as you were telling that, is that my brother-in-law, Curtis, he told me many, many years ago, and I've always remembered this. He told me early in my life, don't ever look down your nose at somebody else. It doesn't matter if they're the janitor or something else. You never look down your nose at someone else. So no matter how high you go, always remember that, because the same person that you're looking down on might be the same person that you might need to help you up a few years from now.
That's absolutely true. In fact, I would go one step beyond that. When we're hiring, I often will ask my administrative assistant when candidates come through the door, how did they treat you? Did they just see you, oh, this is just an admin. This isn't somebody that is important, so I don't need to treat them as such. But it's very important to get the input of all of my staff members and to know that we're all very important. We all have a valuable role to play on the team, and that's just not to be tolerated, that you're going to treat someone less than a human.
Yeah, and actually just adding on to that, when I've hired folks for big teams, one of the things that I like to do is to have my entire team involved in the process. They don't, so they're not going to interview everybody, but a selection of the team will interview some of the candidates that are being selected. And the value that I found with that is you can develop a team that really functions well together, because when you allow the folks to be involved in the process, one of my mentors, Dr. Eric Winslow at the George Washington University, instilled in me this, and I still remember it all the time, is people support what they help to create. get people involved in the process so that they can help with it. So even if they don't agree with it in the end, they at least had an opportunity to participate in it. But when you're going through this process of bringing folks into your organization and making sure that there's an organizational, cultural, and just a personal fit, it's great to have the folks that are going to be interacting with them on a day-to-day basis involved in that process, including from the time that they walk in the door, as you had identified earlier.
Because they have a vested interest. And I also hire based on the premise, I'm hiring my successor. Because I want to be, first of all, I want you to know that I value your contribution. Secondly, I want you to know that it's part of my job to get you to that next level, whatever that next level is, and that we work together to make that happen.
Sounds great. I totally agree with that mentality. And so why did you leave this role at Catawba Valley Community College?
Well, interesting story. The reason that I left Catawba Valley, and I left Catawba Valley to come to Nova, interesting story. Again, it's about networking. I attended a conference in San Francisco. And because of that conference, I met what I call my professional godparents. My godparents were there, and they were also, it was a mid-level conference, a conference for mid-level leadership at the community college, or in higher ed in general. And because of that conference, I met two wonderful gentlemen who worked at Nova at the time, and now I've become an orphan. They've left me, and they've moved on to other positions. But they told me again about a newly created opportunity. It's about being in the right place at the right time and being prepared for whatever that next adventure will be. And they told me about the position, and initially I thought, I'm from the Midwest. I moved to North Carolina. I love the weather, and you have snow in Northern Virginia, so I'm not sure that that's the right position for me. But they kept talking to me about it, and I decided to apply for the position. And I was interviewed, and after hearing what a wonderful opportunity it was going to be, I decided that maybe I really should think about it. And I can fend the cold if I have to. I have boots, so I can wear my boots. And it's just an occasional use of boots. It's not like living in Cleveland. So it's a wonderful opportunity. It was a newly created position. It was designed to be the right hand of the provost. So I tell people, you read off that litany of things that I do, but it really is, I serve at the request of the provost, and any and all assignments I get from the provost, that's essentially what I do.
Well, it's interesting. The last thing that I'll add right before we go to break is that, folks often talk about, you were lucky. You were lucky. And they try to put that out there all the time, like you didn't do any work or preparation. And when we think about luck is what I consider the intersection between being prepared and opportunity. And then, take it a step further, is your willingness to capture upon it once it presents itself. So luck is created by the work that we do and the preparation that we do along the way. So it's time for another break, and we'll be back on the other side.
$14.50 WOL.
Good morning. This WOL traffic update is brought to you by VacationExpress.com. 295 southbound, still pretty slow from Benning Road down to Pennsylvania Avenue, but everything is open. No reports of accidents or incidents. Suitland Parkway inbound now closed with an accident after Suitland Road before Silver Hill Road. Going to be directed around that by police. Outbound is still open at the scene of the incident. Palladium Hotels and Resorts offers guests the all-inclusive experience of a lifetime. Book your Palladium package today with VacationExpress.com. Now your WOL weather forecast, brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council for today. A heat advisory this afternoon, highs in the upper 90s. Afternoon thunderstorms possible. Becoming partly cloudy overnight down to 70. Tomorrow, sunny, a little cooler, high near 88. If you're dealing with daily struggles of caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for advice and support. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council. 90 degrees right now, Washington, D.C. Steve Hirschhorn for News Talk 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Welcome back to Beyond Just Talk with your host, S.L. Young.
All right, folks, welcome back. I can't believe we're already in the final segment. I mean, we've covered so much ground. I still have so much more I want to cover. And so just a reminder, you're listening to Beyond Just Talk with S.L. Young. And if you'd like to join the conversation, you can dial in at 1-800-450-7876. My in-studio guest today is Dean Christine Holt. And so right before the break, we were starting to talk about your work at Nova. So what attracted you to Nova?
Nova, it is a wonderful institution of higher learning. And let me just plug Nova for a minute.
Yeah.
We actually serve, I'm from the Midwest again, so I like to say we're as large as, or if not larger than, the Ohio State University. We serve 75,000 students, 6 campuses. We have an online arm that we call the Extended Learning Institute, 3 centers, and a partridge in a pear tree. So we serve, again, 75,000 students. We have over 77 two-year degrees. The 6 campuses run the gamut across Northern Virginia. We're also growing by leaps and bounds, so we may be adding campuses in the not-so-distant future. Nova is a wonderfully diverse place. It's probably the most diverse place that I've ever worked. One of the treats of going to graduation every year, our former president would stand up as he would begin his commencement address and indicate, well, we have 130 countries represented, and now I think we're up to 150 countries that are represented. And again, it's the beauty of the community college and the mission, the open access. So we're taking students from wherever they are, and we serve students who run the gamut, those students who need some developmental work, may not have done well in high school, to students who are honor students. And they see the community college as a great avenue to be able to leap from the community college to move on to their 4-year institution of choice. We have stellar faculty. Our faculty, many of whom have earned terminal degrees. The real beauty of, again, the community college is it's a teaching institution. So often when we poll our students, one of the things that they highlight is the teaching and how our faculty care about them and their success in moving forward. As I said, we have stellar students. This year alone, we had a Jack Kent Cook winner, a scholarship winner. So we're very fortunate in terms of bringing that mix together, the right students with the right faculty to make sure that they're successful, be it if they're planning to go directly into the world of work or if they're planning to transfer on to a 4-year institution. The other thing that we offer is we offer dual enrollment for high school students that allows students to get an edge, a competitive edge on their peers, to earn college credit while they're still in high school. In fact, some of our students, hopefully within some of our districts, will be able to earn at least a semester's worth of credit. So talk about mom and dad being excited. So when that child transfers either on to Nova or to a 4-year institution, they already have a semester's worth of credit at very nominal cost to the parents.
And one of the things that you mentioned was about I think it was the Jack Kent Cook Scholarship.
Yes.
And I think you glazed over that.
I did.
And basically what I know about that is there's actually been a winner from Nova for many, many years. And so that doesn't necessarily get the coverage in the press that it necessarily deserves. But I don't want to go into that right now because we're starting to run out of time. But what kind of misconceptions do folks often have about community colleges?
I think just the value of the community college, which is what I was trying to highlight. It's not second rate. It's not second tier. As I said, many of our faculty have terminal degrees, and you mentioned about the Jack Kent Cook Scholars for our students. But the thing that you should know, too, about our faculty, they're stellar as well. We have had, out of the 8 years, we have had outstanding faculty recognized at our institution at the state level, and only 2 other institutions in the Commonwealth have that, and that's the College of William and Mary and UVA. So we're very proud of that accomplishment.
Impressive ranks there, right?
That's right. So we're very proud of that. So that misconception that we're less than, we're just as stellar, our students get a quality education, an affordable education, and then they can move on to the 4-year institution. The other thing that I want to mention is that doesn't get much play at all, and that's our workforce development arm. And that's for those students who may have had a job and they were downsized for whatever reason, and they're thinking, well, gee, I just need to upgrade my skills so that I can get back into the workforce within a short period of time and then be able to earn a sustainable wage. So we do offer those types of classes that would allow students to earn certifications and professional credentials to get into the workplace.
And so we've talked about all the stellar services, the students, the faculty, the institution itself, and all the services that are provided. But something that we haven't spoken about is programs for at-risk students. So how does Nova help the students that might not be the ones that traditionally do well to succeed?
Mm-hmm. Well, that really is the trademark of the community college. We do have a wonderful program known as the Pathway to the Baccalaureate, and we work in all of our service areas, schools, high schools, providing those students who are at-risk students, however that's defined, either socially or economically or academically. And then we have staff in the high school. So we've hired the staff. They work in the high schools with the teachers and the students to identify themselves as, yes, you do have the potential to go to college. And we're going to walk you through that process, hand in hand, step by step, through NOVA onto the four-year school, be it George Mason or some other institution. And we're very proud of the success of that program. We've seen many minority students really take advantage of that program and do well and start to prosper. And in fact, we have what we call the boomerang. So some of those students now are coming back because they've completed their four-year degrees. And talk about, when you were talking with your guest earlier, they're the credible contacts for the students coming up now through the ranks to say, look, I was in your shoes just not long ago, and I was able to do it. So I'm going to help you to succeed so that you can do that, and then you can come back and pay it forward to other generations of students.
A common theme throughout today's show about, giving back. And one of the other things that you didn't mention when you were talking about the programs for at-risk students, and one of the things that I happen to know a little bit about because I've had conversations with the organization and talking about volunteering with them, is the work that is done with foster children. And folks, if you don't know about the work that NOVA does to support foster kids and helping them to sort of navigate some of the challenges at home, some of the economic challenges, getting something to eat, getting a backpack, basic supplies. I mean, they do a lot. And, that's probably a group that we probably should have on sometime on the show because, they do some incredible work there. And so let's go back to your role at NOVA. And you've served so many different roles, and we don't even have time to list all the different things that you've done, at least, on an interim basis. So what value or lessons have you learned or have you taken away from serving in these roles?
I think the biggest lesson is the knowledge and understanding I have about the breadth and scope of the units which comprise the community college. And because of those experiences, I can now go into meetings and have somewhat an intelligent conversation about the needs, and not only the needs, but the value that those entities play and why we need those services to make the whole for the betterment of the institution and, most importantly, the betterment of the student. So having that understanding, that knowledge, equips me with being able to have those conversations and to advocate for the services that we need across the board.
And that's a very important point that's often overlooked because a lot of times folks will have a specialty in a specific field and they're experts at it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you can have that depth, it's good, but breadth of knowledge is even better because a lot of times organizational conflict and chaos occurs because folks are so concerned about protecting their environment and staying within their silo versus looking across the enterprise and saying, maybe if I get a little bit of experience outside of my core skills and maybe do this rotational tour or maybe volunteer on a project where I could work with some other organizations to learn some different skills, get some different perspectives, learn about the different parts of the business, you're actually helping the entire enterprise. So it was a great point that you brought up, and I wanted to make sure that I capture that. And earlier, we talked about the many, many roles that you serve, from enrollment management. I'm not even going to go through the whole list again, but campus outreach and evening administration. So there's a lot of things. So my question is, how do you keep from going insane with so many competing priorities?
I have a great staff, and they keep me grounded and they keep me sane. But the one thing is always what's in the best interest of the institution. Do we keep that in mind as we're all, as you mentioned earlier, as we're all saying we need our portion of the pie, but really, is that in the best interest of the institution, and is it going to catapult it to that next level? So just staying grounded, keeping that in the forefront of my mind, and keeping what have I done for students lately. I think that's the most important piece, and if we can address those issues, I think everything else will come and we'll be moving on a trajectory in which we're all proud, and we can say that we made these great accomplishments as a whole.
Yeah, and I'm hating the fact that we're in the final minutes of the show because there's still so much. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit because I want to talk about you. Because not only are you very educated, you're a very respected resource at NOVA, you've had so many different roles. But on top of all of this, let's tell you a little bit more about Dean Holt. Dean Holt was nominated to be part of the prestigious American Council on Education, the ACE Fellows Program. This year, 47 fellows were selected. who were nominated by senior administrators at their institutions. And this was after a rigorous application process. And if you don't know about the ACES Fellows Program, it was established in 1965 and is designed to strengthen institutions and leadership in America in higher education. So by identifying and preparing emerging leaders for senior positions in colleges and university administration, Dean Holt's focus will include student success initiatives, succession planning, legislative advocacy, performance-based funding models, capital campaigning, and non-traditional funding streams. So obviously, Dean Holt is thought of as a highly and very valuable resource at NOVA. And the first thing that comes to mind is, where do you have time to do all of this on top of everything else? And that's just sort of a rhetorical question right now. But
it's exhausting. But rewarding.
Yeah. So we can't even get to it, but, in maybe like 20 seconds. So why is it important for you to serve in this role on ACE?
I think it's important for two reasons. One is so that I can become more knowledgeable and valued employee at my home institution, bring back all that I'm going to learn. I understand it's going to be a transformative experience. Bring that back so that my home institution can benefit from that. And not just my home institution, but I believe in leaving a legacy so that you're helping others who are coming behind you so that they can be catapulted to the next level and that they can do great work within the institution.
And just one more thing I want to throw out is, if all of this wasn't enough, you were recently attended a 2015 Virginia Network Annual Conference entitled Moving the Needle, Advancing Diversity and Equity in Academic Pathways. Man, I've enjoyed having you on today's show, and thank you. We're definitely going to have you back. So I hope that you enjoyed today's show. On next week's show, my guest will be Beth Jannery, who is one of the winds beneath my wings, a former journalist, author, and director of journalism at the George Mason University. Remember, your candle is fueled from within, so don't let anyone reduce or block the fuel to maximize its brightness. Enjoy the rest of your week. Until next time, my friends, have a good one.
1450 WOL.